Paul, did you know 90%, more than 90% of the decisions we make every day is from autopilot?
And the worst of all is most of those decisions are wrong.
Yes, but if we know, and this is the cool thing about System 1, System 2.
Do you ever feel like you're stuck in the same old patterns, repeating the same mistakes over and over again, struggling to make real progress? Have you ever thought that your mindset might actually be the problem?
You're listening to Intentionality with Paul Kempff.
I've thought about going back to the original definition of intentionality, the word intentionality, which I like the most. And that definition is an attitude of purposefulness with a commitment to deliberate action. Now, I want to explore this idea around purpose, deliberate action, intentionality, and the right mindset by looking at the three words in the tagline of Intentionality with Paul Kempff. Now, this is something we came up with right in the beginning of creating this podcast. And I really do think that these three words is very profound in terms of the message that I want to bring across in today's episode. So the three words in the tagline is mind, money, and life. And what I want to do is just speak around these three words, the connection it has to the challenge that we launched last week, and the connection it has to having the right mindset in your life. And I'm going to do that with the help of a very special guest today, not just for today's episode, but for all three of the episodes we are going to do in this series. Now, this is a guest that has been on IWPK before. It is a great friend, a really inspiring mentor, and without a doubt, the most erudite person I know in this world. So a very warm welcome to IWPK, Tertius Niewoudt.
Thanks, Paul. Well, first of all, thank you. It's a privilege and honor to be here. Secondly, wow, that's an amazing introduction. What does that mean, erudite?
Okay, so the word erudite, I always thought I knew the definition.
Yes.
In my mind, an erudite person is a well-read person. So I've always had this kind of idea, it's somebody that reads a lot of books. And luckily, just before we came into the recording today, I thought, let me just go and check if I've got this definition right, if I'm using the word right.
Yeah, I'm very curious now.
And what I found was that erudite doesn't necessarily mean somebody that reads a lot of books. Erudite actually means somebody that has great knowledge and or learning. But the good news is it's still a perfect description for the person you are.
Thank you. Yeah, I take it.
Now, just speaking about books and reading, it's something that we both have a passion for. I did find another word that I can also use in describing you, and that is the word bibliophile. I'm sure you know what that word means.
Yeah, I'm also an audiophile, but yes, I studied Greek and Hebrew, so biblio, I think it's more the collection of books, so same as Bible and library, and phile, it's philos logos, so it's a friend, a love for, like, theos logos, yeah, I understand that.
It's a lover of books, and I think that describes both of us. Now, I don't want to necessarily just talk about reading today, but the start of today's episode is really around this challenge that I launched last week. It's a reading challenge that I want all of our listeners and all of our viewers to follow. And I want us just to briefly touch on reading, since it's something that we both love. And then I want us to move into the real analysis around the mindset topic that I want to discuss today. Now, reading is something that I'm incredibly passionate about, but it's simply just a part of my life. For you, it's something different. For you, it's on a completely different level. I mean, it's what you do. It's what your career is about. It's what you have a passion for. In fact, you want to get people to read more. Is that right?
Definitely. And again, a friend of mine the other day, I heard him, he quoted an entrepreneur, a very famous entrepreneur, he said, money follows passion. But it's more than that. It's about passion. Reading, when I grew up, reading became an escape. It became a tool. It helped me empower. It became inspiration. It became hope. It's actually a very difficult thing if you think about it. It's these little symbols, and each one of these symbols has meaning into it. And when you string them together, it becomes a whole other world. But once you get it, you get it. So I want to implore and inspire more people to read, because I really do believe it's the gateway to a new world that I think we desperately need now for a better discourse, better conversation.
Okay, I love that. So that brings me to the challenge that we launched last week. The challenge is a reading challenge, and we're doing it on the Booked platform. That is a platform that you are intimately involved with.
Intimately is interesting, but passionately also.
Passionately,
Yes,
maybe
yes,
a better word, yes. And the challenge really is we want as many of our viewers and listeners to join you and me, because we'll both be doing this challenge, to join you and me and the production team, that's a challenge to you as well, is to read with us 7 books per topic. That's mind, money, life.
So we made it easy. So we know
not books, it's book summaries.
It's book summaries.
Yes,
yeah.
that's
So
right.
it's a quick synopsis, because I know the stats. I've been working with the data, the facts. I know a lot of people don't have time. So we made it easy. We're giving you summaries of the top 7 books of each of these massive themes that you forward: mind, money, life. We made it. There's audible versions. You can listen to the audio. There's podcast available on that. So there's actually no excuse for you to get it in bite-sized chunks, micro-learning.
And am I right in saying what we've tried to design here is a challenge that requires simply 15 minutes of your time every day? That's it, for 21 days.
15 minutes, you're going to breeze through it. 15 minutes, although maybe a little once you get going, it might be more, because we design it in a way that once you do one step, you want to do the next step. There's a bit of a psychology in there, but it's going to change your life. We did this intentionally.
Yeah. One of the things that I thought of was coming on this episode today and asking our viewers, can you afford to give 15 minutes of your day every day for the next 21 days for this challenge? But I want to change that. I want to ask the question, can you afford not to? Simply because of what you've just said. I've looked at the books that we've done the summaries on, and I believe this can be something that is life-changing. So I really want to ask the question to our viewers, can you afford not to give 15 minutes of your life every day for the next 21 days and join this challenge?
But I read a book, A More Beautiful Question. And Paul, I think the way you framed this question, relatively spoken, towards everything and anything else in your life, you spend time and money and energy, the things you value. If you look at it, 15 minutes, the minimum, and the themes, mind, money, life, you cannot not do this.
I agree. So let's just, before we start with the word mind and talking about mindset, because there's a few topics around mindset that I want to explore today. I want to tell you about something around my life philosophy, and it centers around 2 words for me. The first word for me is accretion, and the second word for me is connectedness. Now, I'm going to try and explain to you what I mean by this by again referring back to this mind, money, life topic that we want to explore in these 3 episodes. And it works for me like this. In episode 54, I did an interview with Eric Kruger. I'm sure you know Eric.
I actually watched the episode.
You watched the episode. Fantastic. And in that episode, we spoke about something around accretion. And what we said, or what Eric actually said, was accretion has no bias. Now, the word accretion is something I've known for a very long time, and I've believed in it for a very long time. But he really put a spin on it that was quite interesting to me. And that is the fact that accretion has no bias, meaning that accretion can work for you to help you create a better life, but it can also work against you to create a less good life for you, if that makes sense. And then the next thing that I thought of trying to bring into this whole conversation.
Maybe just your definition of accretion.
Okay, let's start with
accrue what?
Accretion comes in nature, where things are built in incremental layers over time. So you think of something like a barrier reef.
Yes.
Where there's these small little layers that builds up over time into something massive. And I think it's something we can apply to our lives. Every single thing we do every day, our small little habits, our routines, the way we think, the way we talk to others about ourselves, all of those little things are small little building blocks in building your life, building your success, building your legacy, building your character. everything, in my opinion, works with accretion.
I once heard someone, they used this principle and they said using moments to create momentum.
Yes.
And
I love
that energy is.
I love that. But now what I want to do is I want to take this word accretion. I want us to think about the fact that it can work positively or negatively. And then I want to bring in the word connectedness, because this is something that I'm increasingly experiencing in my life. Maybe it's something around getting older, having more experience. But there's a clear connection for me, for lack of a better word, between accretion and connectedness.
What do you in the context of what?
Okay. I'm going to give you an example, and I think then that might illustrate what I'm trying to say. So think about a wheel, right, or a circle. Let's start with a circle. Right at the top of the circle, the first step in the circle is, for example, a poor mindset. So when you have a poor mindset, that is something that can lead to negative thoughts. Negative thoughts can lead to poor habits. Poor habits leads to poor routine, poor discipline. That might lead to things like bad eating and drinking habits, could lead to things like smoking, leads to things like less exercise, weight issues. Eventually, you end up with certain physical health issues. All of these things, I think, contribute to a life that lacks certain joy.
So it's the things on the outside, on the fringe, externally, that if you reverse engineer it, connect it back to the center of the root of, is that what you mean?
Yes. But if I can just finish that circle, so you have less joy in your life, that leads to you not being able to be intentional, so you become less intentional, you have less purpose, you get to a place where there's no contentment or fulfillment. It literally leads to things like depression and mental issues, and that brings you back to the top of the circle where your mindset is poor. And all of these things continue to reinforce each other. And you almost in this spiral going deeper and deeper into a black hole. That's the negative biased accretion. But that entire
it's
circle,
almost to succumb to a myopic mindset.
yeah.
It's a short-sightedness that just goes down.
But there's a clear connectedness between all of these things. But you can turn that whole thing around. And for me, it starts with the mindset. Because the moment you have the right mindset, that right mindset leads to obviously positive habits. The positive habits leads to better discipline, better routines. That leads to better eating and drinking habits. It leads to exercise. It leads to better physical health, finding more joy, laughing more, being more intentional, finding purpose, finding commitment and fulfillment, and eventually mental wellness. And I think that circle is a positive reinforcing circle that takes you out of that deep, dark hole, almost, I want to say, into the light.
Someone once said, what's the use of a mind if we can't change it? But in there's a principle that we're the one species that can change our mind.
Yeah.
So if we can see or feel or experience the negativity or the toxicity of the spiral you're talking about, the good news, and I think that's one of the reasons of intentionality with Paul Kempff and this mind theme being part of this program, is the good news is a mindset is something you can change.
Okay. But here's the important thing.
Yeah.
It's not that easy.
No, it's difficult.
And that's the reason why with this reading challenge, I really want to encourage people to take part in this reading challenge, to join us. Because what we've tried to create here is we've identified 7 books that we think can help people to change their mindset to a positive, to get this negative circle turned into a positive circle.
Yes. Now, I mean, we deliberately, intentionally did 21. And they say, but in fact, it's not, a habit is not formed in 21 days. The start of a good habit takes 21 days. The start, it actually takes 18 months to make it part of a lifestyle. So we want to nudge you to start a habit that can potentially change everything in your life.
That's really what we want to achieve here. And I really hope we can inspire with this episode today people to join this reading challenge of ours. Now, there's 3 things around mindset that I want us to quickly discuss. Now, all 3 of these discussion points come from specific books that we've identified as the first 7 of the 21 book summaries that we're going to read that specifically links back to the issue of mind or mindset. Now, the first one I want to explore with you is this idea of the science of limiting beliefs. Now, when we talk about limiting beliefs, the great book that we've included in this list that we want people to read is a book called Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. Now, you and I have had a discussion about this book before. I know it's one of your favorites. Tell us a little bit about what this book says about the science of limiting beliefs.
Now, I must, little disclosure here, this is probably my Bible after the Bible. I see a lot of other books stemming from the research, Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, one of the other researchers that won a Nobel Prize for the research. Daniel actually, passed away about a year or two ago. He actually in his last podcast said, well, not everything was, true in a sense of in a research capacity. So they still had to prove some of the hypotheses in this book. If you want to see someone apply the science intuitively, Rory Sutherland, the book Alchemy, and I'm going to refer to a lot of books. So we're going to, look back at some of the books that's in the reading challenge, but I'm going to draw from a lot of books here. Someone that applies the science, Alchemy from Rory Sutherland. But basically that's Think Fast and Slow. It boils down to, let's not think about your right brain and left brain for now. There's another system or two systems in your brain that's at work 24/7, 365. First, you've got your prefrontal cortex, your PFC, and that's your system 2. Your system 1 comes here through your back brain. I'm going to simplify it. Your desires, your subconscious, everything that you sometimes impulsively do without thinking about it, that's your system 1. Then all your sensory data flows through your system 1. That's why it's called system 1. It goes there through first. And then secondly, it goes to your prefrontal cortex where it gets processed, like to make sense of it, trying to figure out what's the pattern here. So I'll take my phone and I'll throw it to you. You'll catch it. That's your system 1. You don't have to practice it as a baby. That pattern has been stored. But system 2 will try to figure out this new pattern. Once that pattern is set, it stores it back into system 1. So you can drive around and do things without taking too much energy. And the reason for this system 1, system 2, it's all about energy, managing energy in your body. So when you go sleep, your system 2 shuts down. Your system 1 continuously has to look after your cardiovascular system, so it will never shut down from the moment you start living to the moment you die. But system 2 takes so much energy that it has in a 24-hour cycle, has to shut down, has to rest. Otherwise, your body won't be able to cooperate, to function. So that's I will almost say the symbiosis between these two systems. And that explains a lot in psychology, in marketing, in business, how people make decisions in human behavior. I want to say this is the cornerstone. Any leader, any marketer, any person that works with people, selling or buying, creating contracts, mitigating relations, arbitration, you need to read this book. It's going to help you. The one thing it helped me is marriage as well, relationships. When you deal with people, you need to read this book. It will help you.
That's a great summary of the summary that we're going to be reading. I don't want to give everything away that we're going to be reading in this book. So I think let's leave that one there. But that's just, I think, a great encouragement for our audience to go and join this challenge and read more about this book of Daniel Kahneman. Now, the second point I want to briefly just touch on with you is reframing failure as growth. Now, reframing failure as growth is something that appears in the book called The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. And this is one of the books that we included in this mind list of ours. And in this book, he talks about how creative people especially sees failure, how they don't actually see it as failure, but simply as data. Data that they can use, information they can use in future to prevent that failure again.
I must say, Paul, Rick Rubin's book, The Creative Act, in 2023 is probably one of my top 3 books of all the books. I mean, this guy is one of the top music producers. I've seen him work with Metallica and Lucas Nelson, man. I mean, 2 totally different genres, but the way his mindset and the way he looks at things. And when I read his book, it changed the trajectory of a lot of things in my life. And you know, I must say he's a Stoic. He's definitely a Stoic, but we'll speak on Stoicism a bit later.
One of the things that he talks about, which I quite like, is just as a practical example for our audience, is saying when something goes wrong in your life, ask, what can I learn from this? I think that's one of the fundamental things in this book.
I think one of the, if you go Google Rick Rubin, he's a very peculiar character. But one of the things I like that he implores people to do is not to do things for money. Artists, especially artists, painters, musicians, whatever your art is or want to master in. A lot of people's like, they tie their identity so much into this work of art. That's, if someone does not want to buy this, then I'm a failure. So he kind of takes people on a journey to help them understand the moment we start creating, the moment we start doing and making art, we pour our love, our passion, our identity into that. And if our only perimeter or matrix is going to be, will people buy this or not buy this, then we're treading on very, very, very dangerous grounds in terms of our own soul and heart. And I love that process where he explains it and unpacks it.
I love that idea as well. The third one and last idea that I just want to briefly talk about is the power of small intentional habits. Now, when we, in episode 3 of the series, talk about life, we're going to talk about habits a lot more. But for now, I think the important thing to understand here is that change in your life, change in your mindset is not something that happens in a big overnight transformation. It's something that occurs through small daily shifts. And this is something that's explored in the book, The 6 Types of Working Genius by Patrick Lencioni.
Patrick Lencioni is probably one of the most prominent consultants for the Fortune 500 companies. One of my favorite books is Ideal Team Player. So he unpacks, and I like the way he does it. I'm not going to give away too much, but in a story format, he's big on narrative and story, especially on the book Ideal Team Player. Just to give you an idea, one of the things that Patrick Lencioni and the way he thinks and writes helped me, especially the book Ideal Team Players. When I had to hire people coming for interview, I asked them 3 questions. Are you hungry, humble, and smart? Hungry? Do you really want this? I mean, Jeff Bezos actually once said, you can see it in people's eyes, the enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is a very underrated thing. We have to look, are they hungry? So, and the second thing is humble. Are they teachable? Because we live in a world where we constantly have to learn and figure it out on the job. We cannot babysit everyone every time, all the time. So hungry, humble, are you teachable? And then smart. The smart is, can I figure this out? Can I, Google something, now in the AI age? So I hope that's a little bit of a teaser for 6 geniuses.
Yeah. 3 great books, 3 of the 7 that we've recommended in terms of this mind reading challenge. I think just the last thing on habits that's important for me is I want to really challenge our listeners as a practical takeaway on this point. Find a small habit that you can start today, something small that you can change in your life that can have the potential to have a huge impact eventually. And if you cannot think of something that you can change in your life, why don't you make this reading challenge that little thing that you change in your life? So Tertius, I think that brings us almost to the end of this episode.
I can't believe it. It just felt like we started. Sorry, Paul, I really get passionate about this. When people start learning, I think it boils down to curiosity. I hope you're very curious about what's in these summaries and how it can change your life.
But that's the thing. When you're passionate about something and you start talking about it, time flies. I find that quite often here on the podcast.
There's actually a book about it called Flow. It's written by Miai Tsikmiai. Go check it out.
I'll definitely go and check that one out. I haven't read it yet. For me, it's important that we end off this episode by just really imploring everybody. This reading challenge, it literally is one day at a time, 15 minutes for 21 days, and it could change your life forever. Please go and join this challenge now.
My call to action on this will be accountability. Get someone or something. Tell them, teach them, ask them. If you read something in this or listen to this summary, take one of these principles and try to teach it to someone else, or ask them what are their thoughts about it, or get a little mastermind group, or just drink coffee with someone. That accountability, that bouncing off the ideas, that in itself and that principle is a lot of engagement, a lot of application, and a lot of inspiration that will help your brain to make sense of what you just learned.
I like that. Tertius, you've spent some time with the production team behind the scenes in creating this challenge. Just very simply, very quickly, practically, what must the listeners do if they want to join this challenge?
So we're on multiple platforms. So either it's on LinkedIn or YouTube or wherever you see this. Even if someone sends you a WhatsApp video, there will either be a QR code. You can just scan that QR code. It will take you through the process. Very easy. 2 or 3 clicks and you're in and you're part of this. Or you just click the link. So it's either scan the QR code or click the link. Once you get into it, you'll see that you can then become part of this platform. It's a subscription based. And then you'll see it unlocks today. So those of you being part of this journey, it unlocks today. But those of you who've joined maybe earlier, you've got access to a lot of things. One of the amazing things that you'll get access to in this very, very cheap subscription is work with AI. Now, if you're familiar with OpenAI, Perplexity, Gemini, or DeepSeek, or whatever the case may be, we have a similar version and even better for much cheaper, where you can get any info that you want, even the summary that you're reading, and get a condensed version on how to apply it within the context, either your school, your work, your university, or your business. This AI will help what you just read, how to apply it in your context.
You've demonstrated that to me. It's amazing how it works. Now, just important, last week's newsletter of IWPK that went out had a link to this challenge in it as well. We'll do the same with this week's episode, and I'm pretty sure the production team will put some things out on social media with the necessary links to this challenge, because we really want the people listening and watching today to go and join this challenge.
You'll also see, you can either send a link to someone if you want to. Obviously, I don't know, Paul, if you're like me, the moment I see something I like, I want to share it.
Yes, absolutely.
So we've built in a few ways. The production team has been working around the clock where you can just share or WhatsApp this link within the platform under the book. Under the cover, there's a little share button as well, and it will take you to, if you want to WhatsApp it or Instagram it to anyone, you can share this. Share the love.
And there's a very important component of this challenge, and that is that you and I will be doing this challenge. There's a comments section on this challenge where we will be seeing what our followers are doing on this challenge, what they are reading, what they are saying, how fast they're reading, anything that is happening there. And they'll also see what we're doing on this challenge.
I mean, we're going to have access to each other's notes, and actually we can talk to each other on the platform. There's a social part where we can interact in real time.
Sounds awesome. I hope everybody joins. That brings us to the end of this episode. We always do a tip of the week at the end of an episode. We're not going to do a tip of the week for the simple reason that the tip of the week sometimes is a book. Remember what we're doing here. We are recommending 21 books in 21 days here. So there's a lot of recommendations in that, and that's why I'm not going to leave you with a specific tip of the week. I am going to end off this week by saying what I also always say at the end of the episode, but with a slight twist. And that is, stay intentional. But if you have not yet tried the intentional journey in your life, why don't you try it? What have you got to lose? Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for watching Intentionality with Paul Kempff. Subscribe, like, and click that bell to get notified when we release more episodes on how to live a life of intention and purpose.